Welcome to the Generational Awakening YouTube channel. Our aim is to encourage, equip, and empower Christian leaders and parents to effectively nurture the next generation to become resilient, lifelong disciples of Jesus. Today, we welcome our special guest, Pastor Nosa Tukura, who will be sharing with us about the Global Day of Children and Families Praying for Unreached People Groups. Nosa is the initiator and executive director of the Hepsi Sheeman Foundation and managing director of the Hepsi Sheeman Interbiz Limited. She has been involved in children's ministry for over 2 decades and serves as one of the pastors of the Mana Evangel Faith Assembly at the Jubilee Center in Jos, Nigeria. She serves as a leader on the continental team of the Movement for African National Initiatives, otherwise known as MANI, and is the coordinator of the Children in Missions Network. She also serves as the global coordinator of the Global Day of Children and Families Praying for Unreached People Groups. Her passion is to see women and children restored and active in God's mission. She and her husband Victor live in the city of Jos, Nigeria, and they are blessed with 3 children and 2 grandchildren. Hi, Nosa. It's wonderful to have you with us today.
Such a great pleasure to be with you and to share with the Generational Awakening Group. Thank you for this opportunity.
Well, I look forward to what you're sharing with us today because it's such an important need and subject. So could you begin by first telling us who are Unreached People Groups?
Yeah, I will start by sharing my screen and just showing you some statistics that speak about this unique group of people, which are called the Unreached People Groups. And sharing this is from the Joshua Project website. So the information is from the Joshua Project website. And at the end of this meeting, this conversation, the details of the website will be shared because I've specifically focused on researching about unreached people groups. So when we talk about the unreached, the definition is a people group among whom there is no indigenous community of believing Christians with adequate numbers and resources to evangelize their own people without outside assistance. You know, for instance, in Nigeria, we have some groups that you have quite a huge number of Christians amongst those tribes. They have Bibles, that's the New Testament. Some of them have the whole Bible already translated in their own language. Such a group, even though there are still people who are not believers amongst them, will not be called an unreached people group. But then we have other tribes or people groups where the number of Christians, some of them are 0.1. In some people groups, they are 0.0%. There are no known believers. So those are the kind of groups that are called the unreached or least reached people groups. So they don't have a large community of indigenous believers, and they also don't have the resources with which they could evangelize their own people. So they will need believers to come from other people groups, from other tribes, to share the gospel with them. And some of them have never heard the gospel at all. And so this category of people, according to Joshua Project, we still have about 7,300 of those kind of people groups that are still reached. In other words, the criteria that Joshua Project uses is that if there are less than 2% evangelical Christians in that group, or less than 5% Christian adherents, meaning those who will say, okay, my father was a Christian, so I was born into a Christian family. They would identify themselves as Christians. So if you have less than 5% of such, then they are defined as an unreached people group. So there are still about 438 unreached people groups with over 1 million population. So there are different categories. You have the the frontier people groups. So for those that have over 1 million population, we still have about 438 of those groups that are unreached. But in total, there are about 7,300 unreached people groups out of over 16,000 people groups. Globally, it's about 16,000. Again, researchers have different criteria for groupings. So you may see sometimes the figures may vary a little, but that's not the point. The point is that we still have a huge percentage of the world that has not heard about the good news. And so when you see the areas with the red dots, those are the concentrations of areas where you have unreached people groups. You can see that India, we have quite a large number. And then you see North Africa. So there's also what we call the 10-14 window, which is the area between latitude 10 degrees and 40 degrees north of the equator. There's some peculiarity about that window, because that's where the highest percentage, the highest number of unreached people groups are found. And so Oswald J. Smith says, we talk of the second coming, but half the world has never heard of the first coming. And John Stott says, we must be global Christians with a global vision because our God is a global God. Pearson said, to stop or linger anywhere, even to repeat the rejected message, so long as there are souls beyond that have never heard it, is at least unjust to those who are still in absolute darkness. So there is a huge need for the church to understand that there is an emergency. We will need to reach out, be deliberate in reaching out to these people, or else they will never hear the gospel. So those are the unreached people groups. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. It's amazing. It's still 2,000 years afterwards that there are still so many who do not have the gospel in their language or people from their people group presented. Well, for the Global Day of Children and Families Praying, how do you engage them in praying for these people groups?
Out of that concern that if nobody takes responsibility to pray or to do something about this huge number of unreached people groups, then nothing will get done. So that's what led to us deciding to have a global day of children and families praying specifically for unreached people groups. Yes, there are many lost people in different places, even around us, but we really would like that on that day, the focus would be on these remaining over 7,000 people groups that have not been reached. They have never even heard about the first coming of Jesus. And so that's the heart of the Global Day of Children and Families, praying for unreached people groups.
Well, when did the initiative start, and what do you see as the purpose?
So the Global Day of Children and Families praying for unreached people groups actually started on June 19, 2021. And the heart of this came out of a desire to engage with children in God's mission. So instead of children being seen as, targets of God's mission, the question we kept asking ourselves as the Children in Missions Network of the Movement for African National Initiatives, was how do we come alongside children and provide opportunities for them to participate in God's mission? And so this vision of calling children and families around the world to pray for unreached people groups came out of that desire. The interesting thing is that originally we thought it would just be the African children, and so that's where we started from, that we would encourage the African children through the networks that we have to observe this Global Day of Prayer. But a very interesting thing happened, because the first people who showed interest in this were not even the Africans. It was the Europeans and non-Africans. And so we began to see that the Lord had a bigger vision than what we had envisaged. And so right from the onset, the day of prayer for Unreached People Groups was global. So we had people joining in from Europe. We had Finnish family children from Finland who were part of it. We had children from some South American countries, and aside from the children from Africa. And so by the time we had the second one last year, on the same day, 19th of June, we had over 1,000 children, participating. For last year specifically, we decided to go beyond just children. We also realized that if we wanted this to become sustainable, if we wanted this to be something that the children would grow with and grow into, then the families needed to be part of it. Because the primary place of discipleship of children is in the home. And so when the families understand that we have a responsibility to pray for these unreached peoples, because if we don't, then they are not going to become, get to hear about the gospel. Each and every one of us became a Christian, and I believe because somebody prayed us into the church, prayed us into the Lord. Somebody somewhere would have, could have interceded for us or shared the gospel with us. There needed to be some intentionality. And so we began to engage not just the children, but their families. And this year we're doing that. Last year we had more countries join. And by God's grace this year, we're trusting the Lord will have even more countries participate with us.
Well, certainly we hope that others will join as a result of seeing this video and hearing your heart and what some of the wonderful things that you and your team are doing. Because it is so important, as you say, to really help children to have a vision which they will carry for their whole lives, where they will, as they realize the importance, the need, and also the impact of their prayers. And as they, with their parents being encouraged, and then they will carry that on to the next generation and each generation, because praying, as you say, as a family is where, the discipleship and the experience and the joy of seeing what God is doing and hearing some of the answers to prayer, and really seeing how parents seeing how their children are motivated, and in some cases children seeing how their parents are motivated, and really impacting us together. Well, in what ways can churches and families get involved, and what are some of the things they can do as they participate?
Several. For churches, we are going to have this global day. There will be a central Zoom link that people can join through. But we also realize that quite a number of families don't have access to internet, especially where we live. And so we'll have people gathering in churches, gathering in schools. We've had Christian schools, gather their children on that day and pray. We've had children in orphanages, and children's homes. So we will encourage churches. They can help share the word, send out the word about this global day of prayer. Our desire is for it to go beyond just a one-day event. And actually, some of the children have actually asked those questions. They've asked questions like, why should it be just one day of praying for Unreached People Groups? Why can't we do this more often? And that's very interesting, because that's what we want to see. We want to see the churches take this on. We want to see families take this on and begin to intentionally pray for Unreached People Groups. So instead of just having it for one day in a year, they could do this all the time. At the family altar, you could pick a people group and then decide to pray for them. You can adopt a people group and say, we're going to be praying for the Pashtuns, as a family. And as the Lord leads you, it's always very interesting, Harry. There was a family an American family with a 7-year-old boy who had, learned to hear from the Lord. And one night he felt the Lord was calling him to China. A 7-year-old, you say, how does a 7-year-old answer the call to missions? And so he shared with his parents, and his parents did not shut him down. Like, in my culture, sometimes you say, oh, that's a little child. Keep quiet. You don't know what you're saying. But the parents listened to him. And then the mom said, okay, if the Lord is calling you to China, don't you think we should learn Chinese? We should learn the language. And so she went and registered herself and him in a Mandarin school. And then the father began to look for opportunities for global workers in China. And today, as we speak, that whole family is in China today because a 7-year-old child heard God call him to China. So these are the kind of things we want to encourage our children, to learn to because as the interesting thing about prayer is that as you pray, your heart, it's not just the heart of the unreached that are softened, but even the heart of those who are praying becomes softened. And so God can minister to people because they are in a place where they are open to hear God. We want these children to grow up in that kind of space, in that kind of atmosphere, so that they don't need to wait until they are 17, 18 before they answer the call to to be part of God's mission. But right there where they are, they can begin to do that. So this is open to churches. This is open. We're calling on churches and, Christian families to share the word, to come online with us if you can. We have, it's also going to be live streamed on our Facebook page, so that people can participate. Some people participate right in their homes, the sitting room. They gather around the TV or the computer to just listen to participate. So not just listen, but they are also praying for these unreached people. Some of them invite their neighbors and their children to be part of it. Children are very good mobilizers. When they are, passionate about something, they tell their friends. So we want to see this go out. We want it to become viral. We want people everywhere, Christians, believers, to pray for Unreached People Groups. And several testimonies come. We've heard several testimonies as people pray, concerted prayers from the body of Christ for Unreached People Groups opens the door into the hearts of these people. Gospel workers, begin to be released. Jesus said, pray ye therefore the laborers. So laborers, are released to reach out to these unreached peoples. And then areas where people have been having difficulties, because the reality is that some of these people are unreached because of the geographical places they live in. Some of them are very difficult to access. And then there's also because of political and religious, kind of differences, the ways of thinking are completely different. So it's really been difficult to penetrate, for the gospel to penetrate into some of these places. But as people pray, those barriers are broken. Hearts are softened and testimonies begin to come about what God is doing amongst his people.
Well, that was a beautiful story you shared about the young boy, and those are some very practical, great examples of how people can be involved. And well, what resources are available, and where can people access them? Make the event known and to help them as they pray on the day and prepare for the event.
Okay. A lot of the time we use some of the Unreached People prayer booklets that are published by Weave Family. So if you go to Weave Family, they have very creative ideas of how you can engage children in praying for Unreached People Groups, how you can even teach young children, to understand who these Unreached People Groups are, because they are human beings like us. So there are stories, from different cultures, and there are many suggestions of what families can do to engage in reaching Unreached People Groups. And another thing that comes out of, praying for Unreached People Groups is that, sometimes the blinders that we wear these unreached people groups, a lot of them now leave because there's been such mass migration around the world. Some of them are just down the road. Some of them, shop in the same places as we do. But because we have been wearing some kind of blinders, we don't see them. But as you begin to pray for them, then you become a bit more aware. Oh, this person looks like, one of those people from the Unreached People Groups. And so that can also well up an interest. Families have been drawn to befriend some of these Unreached People Groups who have migrated to their cities, to assist them, to offer to serve them in one way or the other, to show them the love of Christ. So you can get some of those resources from We Family. Joshua Project .net does a lot of research about Unreached People Groups. They create prayer cards that can be used for both for adults and for groups. So you can do Bible studies, you can do all kinds of, get information about where these people are, who they are, and also the resources that are already available in their languages. So some of those information you can get from Joshua Project.
Right. Well, we will share below the video the links to those websites you mentioned and the resources so people can very quickly and easily find them. Well, there are also regional coordinators, so their contact details will also be included so the people can connect with maybe initiatives in their geographical region and even in their country. Well, as we conclude, Nosa, what should viewers do to participate?
Okay, so for this year, the Global Day of Children and Families Praying for Unreached People Groups will be July 22nd. And so we would love for you to participate either by joining us on Zoom or following on Facebook. But we will really love that you participate, and then using the contact on the flyer, which Harry will show at the end of the video, you could contact us and let us know, what your experience was like, engaging in praying for Unreached People Groups with your family. We would really love to hear back from you.
Yes, indeed. And share the information with your local church, have people maybe share the news, give the date, explain the details, and perhaps mobilize several families to just spend some time together to pray on that day or to pray on other occasions. So those are great possibilities, great resources, and very powerful to mobilize many of the global church to pray together on a specific day. So it's wonderful that this is something God has laid on your heart these last 3 years now, and that's something which you've seen just growing and building and mobilizing more and more people. So thank you again for being with us. Thank you for carrying this vision, for sharing this burden, and along with others now, just inspiring families and children to be praying for unreached people groups and just leaning into God's heart and having more of his heart and his vision, his compassion for others. Well, as I say, below you will be able to find the information and the links that Nosa has mentioned and shared with us. And if you find value in what we've shared today, I invite you to like this video and to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to be kept informed of each new video released. Let us know in the comments below what you find most helpful or encouraging. And if you have any questions for myself or for Nosa, then share the link with friends and churches who would also be helped and inspired and encouraged to participate in this day of prayer together. And together, let's impact many more lives for good across all the generations. So thank you again for joining us today. Be blessed, and let's keep multiplying the blessing to others. So bye for now.